Imagine living in a world where food is everywhere. For thousands of years, your ancestors have lived in a paradise. The weather is perfect, the rivers are clean, and giant animals roam the plains. You don't need to farm. Nature provides everything. And then, in a matter of just 1 week, the world ends. The temperature plunges by 10 degrees. The rivers freeze overnight. But worst of all, a massive wall of water, hundreds of feet high, comes rushing down the mountains, swallowing entire forests, animals, and tribes alive. This isn't a Hollywood movie. This actually happened. Geologists call it the Younger Dryas Impact. It was a time when a comet hit the Earth, melting glaciers instantly and triggering a global mega-flood. For ancient humans, this wasn't just a bad week. It was the apocalypse. Today, we are going to look at the dark history of how our ancestors survived the week the Earth broke and how it changed human history forever. Before this event, most human tribes lived near rivers and coastal areas because that's where the food was. But when the comet struck the ice sheets, billions of gallons of water were released in days. Imagine waking up to a sound like continuous thunder. You step out of your shelter, and the river that used to sustain your life is now a roaring monster, swallowing the trees around you. The water rose so fast that people didn't even have time to grab their tools. Archaeologists have found ancient camps completely buried under deep layers of flood mud, with beautiful stone spears left behind untouched. Entire tribes were trapped on hills that suddenly became islands. Surrounded by toxic, muddy water, they had no clean food, no dry wood, and nowhere to run. But the flood was only phase 1. Phase 2 was the real killer. The comet impact threw so much ash and smoke into the atmosphere that it blocked out the sun completely. The world entered a sudden, brutal ice age that lasted for 1,200 years. Within days, the lush green forests died. The mega-mammals like mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, which humans relied on for food, began to starve and freeze to death. If you were an ancient human stuck on a muddy hill, you were now facing the ultimate test. The plants were gone. The animals were dead, your clothes were soaked, and the temperature was dropping below freezing. To survive, humans had to do something they had never done before. They had to stop trusting nature and start hacking it. When the world was a paradise, humans moved from place to place. But now, with the world frozen and flooded, moving meant death. You had to stay where you were. In places like the Middle East, humans gathered in the few remaining valleys that had water. Because they couldn't find wild fruits anymore, they took a desperate gamble. They took the remaining seeds of wild wheat, cleared a small patch of mud, and buried them. This was the exact moment agriculture was born. Out of the absolute desperation of a global flood and a freezing winter, humans invented farming. They built permanent stone houses because they couldn't travel anymore. At a site called Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dating exactly to this chaotic period, archaeologists found massive, mysterious stone pillars carved with wild animals. It was the world's first temple. Trapped by the apocalypse, humans didn't just survive. They united, created religion, and built the very first cities. The mega-flood eventually stopped and the ice melted, but the trauma of that 1 week was so deep that it burned itself into the collective memory of the human race. Have you ever wondered why almost every ancient culture on Earth, from the story of Noah's Ark in the West, to Manu's Ark in ancient Indian texts, to the flood myths of Native Americans, all talk about a great flood that destroyed the world? It's because our ancestors actually lived through it. The next time you see a heavy rainstorm outside your window, remember this: the comfort we live in today was bought by the blood and sheer will of the survivors who stood on those muddy hills 12,000 years ago. They didn't let the world end. If you love exploring the dark, untold mysteries of our past, hit that like button, leave a comment about what you think, and subscribe for more mind-blowing stories.